The Icons of Real Estate Podcast. Are you ready to learn the proven money-making secrets from top-producing Icon agents? Ready to skyrocket your business? This podcast is for you. Tune in every week and find out how to implement proven strategies to 10 times your business. From $3 million to $30 million in just 12 months. Brought to you by the Masters in Real Estate Marketing, Arter SEO.
Welcome to the Icons of Real Estate. I'm Tim Calloway. We have a very special guest for you today that I've been looking forward to speaking with, Michael Blank. Michael's a full-time entrepreneur, investor, and coach who's passionate about helping others become financially free in 1 to 3 years by investing in apartment buildings and a special focus on raising money. And I don't think anybody can argue with that. How are you, Michael?
That's great to be here. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, no worries. Like I said, I've been looking forward to it. So why don't we just start at the beginning, right? I mean, you've done very well, and you help a lot of people, which we're excited about hearing. But how did you get started?
Well, my background is a little bit like many people. I just got a job. I was always taught to get good grades, get a job, and I got a job in computer science. So I was actually a programmer when I first got started out of school, and spent a couple of years at America Online back in the day, and then in late '90s. Joined a startup in 1997. Through that startup, had a successful IPO. I was one of the first, one of the handful of guys that was early employees there. Had a great IPO, put a bunch of money in my pocket, and so I coasted for like 4 years until I read that awful purple book called Rich Dad Poor Dad.
Rich Dad Poor Dad.
And it ruined my life because
Right.
when I read that book, I was like, oh my gosh, I'm such an idiot. It doesn't matter how much money I have in the bank or my brokerage or how much I'm earning. It's the passive income.
Yeah.
And I had very little at the time. So after like 3 months of confusion, I came home and declared to my wife I had quit my job to pursue financial freedom. And after, of course, the purple book doesn't tell you how to do it. They mention things like cash flow business and real estate. You're all confused. Right. My big idea at the time was to go into the restaurant business. I mean, isn't that what you would do after reading Rich Dad Poor Dad? Well,
genius.
Genius. And that's what I did. Now I flipped a bunch of stuff. I took some seminars. I actually took an apartment building seminar. I flipped a couple houses. I negotiated some short sales. I negotiated stocks and options, or I did some stocks and options for a little while. But the big path of freedom was restaurants. It was basically a franchise. And I had a few guys that were like printing money, as they say, like, yeah, you hire a guy to run it all, you fund it all, and you spit back and you count the passive income. I said, sweet. And it worked really great until the recession. And then it didn't work so well. In fact, it took me 5 years to extricate myself. I had about 8 restaurants. I subsequently lost my IPO millions, maxed out all of my credit, which was $200,000 at the time. And then kind of clawed myself out with real estate because I had flipped a couple houses in 2007, right before the recession. And I said, that worked really well. Why don't I flip houses again? And so 2009 to 2012, 13, flipped about 3 dozen houses. And so it was really an awful time because I was working like 80 hours trying to get out of the restaurant, running a restaurant business, losing money, and then flipping houses and making money. So I was working my tail off and not making any money at all. And that was a pretty hard time until I got into my first building, a multifamily building in 2011 through one of my wholesalers, and everything kind of changed from that point forward.
Wow. Now, see, I love stories like that. And I hear so many stories that resonate, about 2008 and things that happened then. Yours has a little cherry on top because you came from somewhere else and brought a little cash flow with you. But the thing is, it goes to show, I think, that even people with great successes really need someone to guide them when it comes to real estate, right? I mean, we need a mentor. I mean, you needed someone to teach you how to program, and I needed someone to teach me finance when I first started, back in '92, giving away my age. So yeah, we need someone to guide us, and that's what you do, right, Michael? I mean, that's what you're doing now. Tell us about
that. I do now, but I didn't do it back then, right? So back then, I undervalued advisors or mentors or coaches, because I had money and I consider myself smart, which is, I'm sure, all true. But the point is, why reinvent the wheel? Why experiment on yourself when you can benefit from someone who has done it possibly many times over. And for example, I thankfully discovered my mentor in my restaurant crisis, and he helped me basically get through it. But man, that guy would have been super useful before I got into it. Yeah, because he would have asked me all these questions. And number one, I wouldn't have had the answers, number one. And number two, I probably wouldn't have liked the answers because I was hell bent on getting myself some financial freedom.
Yeah.
Now, house flipping, I did have a mentor, and probably to no surprise, the first postcard campaign I sent, I got 2 deals off of, and I looked like an immediate genius.
Right.
And so every time I did not invest in a mentor or advisor, it never went well for me. And conversely, when I did, I always got a vast return on investment. But it's tough because you have to spend money, and sometimes you don't have the money to spend, and you're like, man, I'm just gonna save some money and figure out another way to get into the game. And you can. I do believe you don't necessarily have to have money to get into a game, because hustle makes up for a lot. And so people with hustle will eventually get there. It just takes longer than if you can have someone who's experienced doing whatever you want to do in life, whether it's build a brokerage or flip houses or even lose weight. Someone who's done it before can walk you through some of the nuances, the challenges, and help you deal with those tough days. And that's what I didn't have. And that was a major mistake. And as a result, I lost 10 years of my life and, millions of dollars in the process.
Right. So if someone wanted to, get involved and start looking for that financial freedom, where's the first place they start? I mean, is it your book? I mean, is that the best place to start? Or, hey, do they just give you a call and join up? Or what would you suggest?
Yeah, I mean, so in the beginning, when you're checking out what I call business opportunities, and we're talking about financial freedom here, and there's all kinds of business opportunities, franchises being, of course, one of them. So the first thing to do is just to kind of research it a little bit and look into it. So you mentioned the book. It's a great, it costs $10 on Amazon. It is a great introduction into the world of real estate syndication. Real estate syndication means the art of raising capital and buying real estate with it. Now, we just do it with apartment buildings, but you can apply the same thing through a rental portfolio or single self-storage. Right. So it's a great introduction into that world. And listening to my podcast, for example, are very a free or low-cost way to kind of look into it and kind of go, is that interesting enough for me to kind of take the next step? And the next step after that, and almost all these biz ops somehow, is to invest in yourself, whatever that means at whatever level you are. But there's only so many podcasts you can listen to or YouTube videos you can watch before, you need more details, right? You need actual tools and templates, techniques. You might even need some support or some level of community, and you're not going to get that from social media or a podcast. So at one point, my advice always is find someone in the space that you're trying to get into. And who do you resonate with? Because there's other people that, that do what I do, even in different asset classes. Like, who do you resonate with? And then when you find someone to resonate with, just go deep with that person. Just go deep with that person and immerse yourself into their courses or their events. Check out their events, see what they're all about. And that really is powerful, because people have been around for a little bit. They should at least have a proven system that you follow. A proven system. They should have a network of advisors, people who can actually support you, and a network of peers of like-minded people who can help each other kind of achieve that particular goal. And so that's really what you want to look for in any kind of organization that will help you achieve something of great meaning and value.
Nice. So tell me about what you're investing in now. Are you looking for investors, or do you have to be a qualified investor? Tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah, I mean, so there's really at least two ways to get involved in real estate syndication. One is more on the active side. So as an active investor, the entrepreneur who's raising the money, finding a deal, managing the property manager, that's the active side. And that's very rewarding, right? If you're an entrepreneur, you really, that lights you up. But there's others who don't want to be the entrepreneur for various different reasons. They just want to invest passively in an opportunity, and they're really looking for cash flow, yield, tax advantages. They might have high income jobs. It makes no sense for them to try to get out of their jobs. Right. But what they might want is an exit out of their high paying job. If you're an attorney or a medical doctor or something like that, you're like, man, I really like my job and making a ton of money, but I don't see myself doing this for another 20 years. What can I do? Well, you can start investing in real estate syndications because it gives you that cash flow that you can't get from the stock market, and it gives you these tax advantages that you don't get from other investments, and it gives you that amazing hedge against inflation, which is so relevant now. And so there are different reasons why you want to get into syndication. But to me, after all the shenanigans I've done, Tim, is syndications is the best biz op out there. And it's the best biz op from an entrepreneur's perspective for a variety of different reasons. And it's the best passive investment out of anything that's out there, And so I'm talking about stock market, mutual funds, crypto, all these things. There's flaws with all of them that you don't have in real estate syndication.
That sounds like a win-win deal. That gets me excited, and I've been around it for years. Yeah, I love it. So let's just say, I came up to visit, and, we sat down, you and your family, and, we just started talking. And I asked you, I said, Michael, I've got a magic wand here, and I'm going to fix one real issue you're having in business right now. Is there a problem? Do you need my magic wand? Or if so, what is it?
Man, that'd be too easy, Tim, wouldn't it?
Right?
It would take the fun out of everything if we had a magic wand.
I know.
I think what you're asking for, what's the biggest challenge right now in the business? And I would probably say it's probably challenging to buy stuff right now. And you probably see that across different asset classes, single family houses, right? The volume's way down, no one's selling anything. And so the good thing is we've seen this before. And the most recent thing we saw in COVID, and that's what we're seeing right now. We're seeing a gap between what the sellers want to sell for and what buyers are willing to buy for, right? And there's a gap there that it currently is difficult to be bridged. And we saw it, and let's replay it. And I think the same thing will happen that happened with COVID. When COVID first happened, everything, of course, shut down, came to a screeching halt for like 2 weeks when everybody said, what's happening? I'm locking myself up. Okay. And so in the commercial world, we use a lot of bridge loans to fund these value add deals that involve a heavy construction component, for example, and they were great. But they went away immediately. They just went gone, poof, gone. Actually, many of them are permanently gone. And what happened was now, if I can't, for example, finance my construction, or I can't get the loan to value I was getting before, I have to now raise more equity to buy the deal at the same price, which reduces my returns, which I can't do. Therefore, I have to lower the price I can buy it at. If I have to raise more equity, I have to buy it at a lower price. So that's kind of what's happening right now. Bridge lending did not go away, but their loan to value plummeted. Whereas before you're expecting an 80% loan to value loan, now you're seeing like 55 or 60.
Right.
Now it's already starting to creep up a little bit. And the reason for it is the pace at which interest rates have been going up recently. It wigs everybody out. No one can project in the future. No one knows where it's going to stop. And I'm less concerned about where they're going to stop. I'm more concerned about when it's going to normalize, right? It can normalize at 7, I don't care, 10%.
Right.
But the pace is what's wigging out the lenders because they don't know where it's going exactly. And they think they know where it's going, but you can see by their loan to value that they're not exactly sure. There's risk in their mind. Sure. And so what happened with COVID, once it stabilized again, that started to thaw again. And that's what we're seeing right now. And what happened though is if you're able to educate a seller on buying a house or selling a house on what's happening in the market, because here's some sellers actually need to sell or want to sell, but they don't understand what's going on. Why won't you pay the price I'm asking? Well, let me explain to you what's going on. Here's what's going on in the lending market, interest rates, loan to values. If I want to buy your property, it's going to have to be for this price, for this reason. And by the way, every buyer is going to tell you the same thing. And therefore, if you want to sell in the next 3 to 6 months, you have to pay attention. And here's what's happening. And here's why I'm willing to pay this price. Now, we got 2 deals out of that with COVID because there was that gap. Right. We were able to show people what was happening in the market and they wanted or needed to sell. And so I think there's going to be a lot of opportunity happening here in the short term.
I hope so. I really do. I hope there's some opportunity. And I agree with you 1,000%, whether you call it stabilization, leveling off, whatever it might be. But this constant erect movement, whether it's up or down, we've seen it on both sides, right? Is never totally healthy. So definitely want that. So let's put our prognostication hats on. Since I threw away the wand, we're going to put our prognostication hats on. What's the next 1, 3, and 5 years look like for Michael and his team and his organization?
Yeah, I mean, we have 2 companies. One is we were talking about Nighthawk Equity, which actually buys apartment buildings, raises capital, and then there's an educational company that actually teaches people how to do this. Now, they're very synergistic, but to me, they're both very satisfying because our mission is financial freedom, and I can show an entrepreneur how to do it, and I can show a passive investor how to do the same thing using slightly different paths, but using the same vehicle. So on the educational side, we want to reach more people. We want when someone reads the purple book, right after they're done, we want to hand them the yellow book. Okay. And I want to call up Robert and go, hey, can we just tack these things together?
Right.
Because the purple book is great. It plants the seed of financial independence and passive income in your brain, but it doesn't give you the playbook on how to achieve it. And so as a result, I've experimented with all these different ways, and I've seen people experiment with it. And there's a more direct path, which is apartment buildings. And most people do their first deal and quit their job literally within their first deal, whether they have any experience or money or not. It's kind of unbelievably magical. So we want to reach more people on the educational side.
Is that the same book we were talking about earlier, or is that a totally different book?
Same book. I only have one yellow book. Yeah.
Okay, perfect. So I was gonna say, how do we get the book? We all need to sign up right now. Go ahead and tell me what are the best ways, Michael, to get in touch with you, or to get the book, or maybe join your organization as a student.
Yeah, we talked about two great ways to kind of stick your toe in the water, and that is the book and the podcast that we have. And we kind of put together a little package for your listeners, and they can get to both the podcast and the book at thefreedompodcast.com/icon. So it's thefreedompodcast.com/icon. There's a link to both the podcast and what we call the Freedom Vault. Freedom Vault has all of our free resources in there. It's got a bunch of templates and ebooks, how to raise money, how to analyze deals. And we also have a free copy of this book in that Freedom Vault. Okay. So you don't have to buy it. So that you can get that at the thefreedompodcast.com/icon. And that's a great way, a free way for your audience to kind of stick their toe in the water.
Yeah, I love it. I think that's fantastic. So generally, we're kind of winding down here on the show a little bit. One of the things I like to do, Michael, is and we're in that kind of time in history where I think people want to get some things off their chest, but I always allow the last few minutes and give it to you to kind of tell the audience whatever's on your mind, your heart, your soul. And it doesn't have to be about business. Most people it is, but I've heard stories about grandma and the pet dog, but take us out the last couple of minutes and give us some sage advice.
Yeah, I think the biggest message is to be clear about what you want, which is clarity. And as I rewinded, I was not clear about that. When I read Rich Dad Poor Dad, I wanted financial freedom, and I equated that with being a real estate investor. Okay. But real estate investor is not equal to financial freedom, as I discovered, right? Because if I wholesale houses or I flip houses, or even if I build a rental portfolio of single family houses, that is a very active activity. It's not really very passive. Right. It also is much more difficult to scale. So it doesn't really satisfy my requirements of passive income and financial freedom. What I would like is I would like to have my money work for me, and I'd like to continue scaling that money without really working any extra for it. And so those tactics don't really satisfy that requirement. Now, I had no idea that was the case. My message to the millions is, think about what you're about to do or what you're doing right now. Will that current path actually get you to that place? It's like one of those things where you're on this ladder of success and you're climbing up the ladder and you're at the top. You're like, yes, it's taking me 3 to 5 years to get to the ladder of success. And you notice the ladder's up against the wrong wall, right? You're like, daggone it. I was climbing up the wrong daggone wall. And so my challenge to people is really think about what you're doing or what you want to do. What is that strategy that you're pursuing or want to pursue? And will it get you to the place that you want to get? So that's message number one. And I, as well as a lot of guests on my podcast, have discovered that the typical routes will not get there. They may start there, but people discover they can't get there and they go, daggone it, what's going on? And they pivot. And they inevitably pivoted to syndications, real estate syndications, multifamily specifically, but there's also self-storage and mobile home parks. And the surprising thing about that is that, well, people think that they can't do it because they don't have the real estate, they don't have the experience, and they don't have the money. But the surprising thing is you don't need either. And that's what I'm here to tell you. You can overcome both in a very short period of time. I can make you appear very experienced in 30 days or less. Wow. I can teach you how to raise money in 30 days or less, so that people who start working with us, they're doing their first syndication in 6 months and they quit their job within another 6. So within 12 months, okay, they go from nothing to literally quitting their job. And it is the most direct, most powerful strategy that I know to go from wherever you are right now to financial freedom.
Michael, man, I'm about to turn off this computer and end this podcast. I'm in. It's over. I quit my job.
Nice.
Honey, I did it. No. Wonderful stuff, Michael, man. I really enjoyed it. I'm actually looking forward to playing this back and watching it because I want to absorb a little bit more, and I definitely will be ordering your book here pretty quick. Thank you so much for being on the show. I look forward to catching up with you in the next 3, 6, 9 months and kind of see where we're at then.
Thank you so much, Jim. Really enjoyed it.
Have a great week.